stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd ask you all to silence your cell phones if possible. Or not if possible, I'm asking you to do that, so I make sure mine's off. I don't want to. Let's see. Good, all right. Thank you. Okay, on our agenda this evening, first, public hearing, Fairview Commons. Seeker review, recommendation to the town board regarding a planned residential overlay district, designation, site plan and land contour permit, public hearing for construction of a 170-unit apartment complex and 8,500 square feet of support space, 66 Fulton Avenue, Zone FC, Fairview Common, 13.89 acres on listed action. Page Park Associates owner. Hi, is everyone here?
We are.
Good. We're here, you're here. Let's go.
Okay.
You
like
are.
us to start. All right, thank you. Members of the board, Mr. Chairman, my name is Rodney Morrison, professional engineer for the LRC Group. We're the design engineer for the project, civil engineer, Rich DeAndrea, traffic engineer for the project as well. Our purpose here, this project has several steps to go through. We're glad to be at a point where we can have a public hearing and get public input on different elements of the project. I think it'll help us overall. There are two particular subjects, I think, for tonight. One is just the project and the scope of it in general. There's also the land contour change permit, which is a part of the project. And speaking, because the board all knows, mostly for public understanding, we have a separate concurrent application to go along with this project that would let us move forward with site work on the land itself while we were working through all the fine details of the site design, of which there are a lot of considerations to have, both for traffic and interior to the site. So with that said, the property is on Fulton and Fairview at this corner here, hard to point from where I am. It's 13.9 acres. Within the town code, we are seeking the application of Planned Residential Overlay District, or PROD. That would be done by the town board. What we need to accomplish with the planning board is a positive referral for that zoning, for that overlay application, as well as achieving a seeker negative declaration from this board stating that, the potential environmental impacts that would be caused by the project can be mitigated by the design. Obviously, again, as staff knows, we've been working with staff for quite a while, that the full detailed design for the project wouldn't be done until after the town board applied the PROD designation, and we were back here for all that fine detailed work, as I've said. With that noted, at this time, the project proposes to have its main access on Fulton Street. We also propose to make a realignment of Fulton and Fairview, which Rich DeAndrea will talk about for a few minutes. We have an in only coming off of West Cedar on Sunset Avenue. There is no other access proposed towards Fairview. The project would include 4.5 acres of open space, principally up along Fairview, which would be, in essence, a permanent buffer to the project and to the whole Fulton Street as it progresses down towards Marist College. The project hopes to create 166 units. The hearing in our previous plans have stated 170. It is mathematically 166. So I'll take that off your comment list for later, Liz. 166 units with appropriate parking. Again, as staff knows, the plan here represents our submission to date, but we're working on increased parking and better allocation of parking towards buildings and so on. So. With that said, there are other elements, again, that would follow along with the project that we've given the planning board conceptual and even more detailed designs of. We've taken interactive input from the planning board, the staff, county planning. We've refined this design somewhat, particularly in the area of the courtyard with the parallel parking recommendations coming out of county planning. So in terms of the plan layout and what type of impact and needs it would create on the land and on the community, we've tried to frame that and quantify it and address it. So again, we're hoping to just continue to work through this board, through the neg deck process and your recommendation to the town board. So I guess I'll have Rich talk for a minute about our work with Marist, the town traffic engineer, just to give you an update on, and the public, where we're at with the street system.
Just so everybody, my name is Rich D'Andrea, Mazer Consulting, traffic engineer, professional engineer. We have been through the process of a traffic impact study on this project. It's been reviewed by staff and Mr. Peterson, traffic engineer. We've analyzed several different access alternatives based on the recommendations of the town. Our current access alternative, as Rod had mentioned, includes the main access to Fulton Street, along with a realignment of the east leg of Fairview Avenue to make that intersection a more conventional T intersection. As you know now, that intersection is kind of at a steep skewed angle, and it allows high-speed right turns off of Fulton Street onto Fairview Avenue. Along with this, the west leg of Fairview Avenue is proposed to be made one-way northbound. That intersection of Fairview Avenue, on the west leg of Fairview Avenue and Fulton Street, is proposed to become an always stop intersection. And the Fairview Avenue west leg would just be a stop on the side road on Fairview Avenue. And then, as Rod had mentioned, the secondary access would be from West Cedar, an entry-only access with pedestrian sidewalk to connect to the sidewalk along West Cedar that's currently there. And then, as far as our coordination with Marist, the Marist project at Beck Place is moving forward as far as we know, and our current plan is to provide a sidewalk up to our property line and beyond based on our coordination with the town along Fulton Street. The sidewalk would basically be constructed within the right-of-way of the roadway by narrowing the lanes along Fulton Street and providing a sidewalk along the south side of Fulton Street. And Marist, the plan for Marist is to match into that sidewalk and continue that sidewalk down towards the existing section of sidewalk along Fulton Street, closer to Beck Place. So that is, I think, a general overview of what we've been going through so far.
Thank you. Eric or Liz?
Yeah, sure. You want to scoot over a little bit? Sorry.
Everybody shift left.
Anyway, I won't touch on the density thing. That's already been covered. This is going to be 166 dwelling unit development. We have been in discussion with town staff and also the applicant representatives to go over a few issues. We had a discussion about parking to provide a more appropriate complement of parking, possibly 437 spaces. Some of it may be land banked. So that's one of the plan refinements. We did have discussion about some of the extensive steep slopes to be created, to discuss how those will be treated in terms of erosion and sedimentation control. And then we need a little more documentation on how the proposed zoning relates to the town's adopted plan. And let's see. Those are my main points, and I want to really turn it over to Rich Pearson and also Don Beer about any of the issues with erosion. And Josh Mackey. And actually, my conclusion procedurally is that the board is not ready for any secret review or other action on this project.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with Don. I can come back to you if you want.
I'm okay.
We know that.
Thank you. We're pretty far along with the land contour permit. We have a few SWIP-related comments on that. Other than that, we are trying to resolve some drainage comments on the site plan itself, which we hope to be able to resolve before they make their submittal next week. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Who else?
Rich and I think Josh.
Rich Pearson, I'm sorry. I'm looking the wrong way.
Rich Carroll.
Yes.
Okay, I'll go
Josh for
first.
last. Thanks.
I'll go first. First off, my letter was inadvertently dated May 11th, 2014. That was a previous letter which I modified and forgot to change the date, so it should be referred to as my letter of June 12th, 2014. Several of the comments have been addressed based on some coordination that we've been having with the applicant's engineers. They are showing a proposed separate site driveway now, and we're generally comfortable with this access scheme. They had looked as modifying a common access with the adjacent commercial property or industrial property and the separate access on Fairview. This access would be their own driveway, and it would be centered between the relocated Fairview western leg and the existing access for the property. We did ask that they provide information on intersection site distance. They had not provided that for that location. They had looked at other driveways and intersections, but not that. My gut feeling is that the site distance will be acceptable there, but I want them to prove that out. They had shown stop signs on the western leg as an all-way stop intersection with Fairview and Fulton. And Rich mentioned earlier that Fulton would not be stopped and it would just be on the western leg. So we concur that it should be based on how he described it this evening rather than what was shown on the plans that were submitted to your board. We are looking for a stop sign eastbound along Fulton at the intersection with the eastern leg of Fairview. So that would be an all-way stop intersection.
Where exactly, Rich?
Yeah, I'm gonna give.
Yeah, that's where I was going, Rich. You want the pointer?
I've got one.
Yeah,
Stop at their entrance.
the eastern leg isn't as easy to see.
Go back 2 stop signs.
Okay. So, this is the relocated section, the western leg of Fairview, and we would suggest that that be stop sign only along the northbound approach of Fairview, and that the Fulton Street traffic not be stopped along that area. The Fulton traffic would be stopped at an all-way stop here. Currently, it's stop control for Fairview Avenue, the eastern leg, and Fairview extension here, the residential roadway. And because of sight distance limitations for vehicles looking over this vertical crest of the hill, we're proposing that, or recommending that that be an all-way stop situation. And they have analyzed that there is capacity for that to work, so it addresses a safety concern. It has an added benefit of reducing traffic speeds along Fulton, where currently vehicles have been observed traveling above the posted speed limit, and this would reduce speeds. And by them traveling to a stop condition here, they would be going relatively slowly as they pass this intersection for the westbound traffic. So that's where we don't have the sight distance concerns, and we would not recommend it, at least based on what we've seen so far, that this intersection be a all-way stop control. So we've also asked that they look at the site distance for that relocated driveway as well.
We're out there Tuesday.
Fairly steep grade, though.
It is, but we've talked it through. When we had our field meeting out there, we considered that, and we think that would be still okay as an all-way stop control. And the grade is more steep as you're coming up as compared to as you're traveling along Fulton Street westbound.
I think we should go out in the field with him, Carol. I'm thinking that maybe down the road, we should go out in the field again, perhaps with you.
Sure, yep, we could do that. The next comment 6, refers to the intersection of Fulton Street, Beck Place, and the Mid-Hudson Plaza driveway. Currently, there are some delays for vehicles exiting the shopping center during the peak hours. That's primarily where the delays are occurring. The analysis that was recently submitted was modified in part based on their field observations consistent with ours, that the delays were a bit overestimated, we think, with previous submissions. There are potential improvements or modifications to the intersection based primarily on the Marist application. The previous information submitted to us by Marist had proposed that that be a one-way southbound roadway into Beck Place, no longer having Beck Place traffic exit at that location. All Beck Place traffic would exit at the existing driveway to the east. My understanding is there have been some recent considerations by Marist to possibly make that into a two-way roadway or retain it as a two-way roadway and to install a traffic signal. So we're not sure about the status of Marist. So what we've suggested in comment 6 is your board may wish to consider having the Fairview applicant put some money into escrow for potential future improvements at the intersection with a term limit, say 5 years, and if there are no improvements done at the intersection, then that money could potentially be returned to the applicant. But depending on what would happen for improvements in the future, there would be some potential fair share money by this applicant. If Marist does go with a two-way operation and proposes a traffic signal potentially at their own expense, then by the time this project's approved, if the board were to approve this project, then maybe no funds would have to be contributed by this applicant. So it's something there for your consideration. So that covers both comment 6 and comment 8. And most of the other comments are involve more detailed information, such as the truck routing plans that they have. Truck turning plans don't show a truck making a left turn back to Route 9, which we expect many of them would do. So we've asked for that information. We've also asked for more detailed information regarding pavement markings, the width of certain roadways being dimensioned for existing and proposed condition, radii, and alignment issues that we think we can work out the details with the applicant on. And that summarizes my letter.
Okay. Thank you. Apparently there was some new news, there were some meetings today, so some of this is not what I remember hearing the last time they were here, so.
Yeah, I mean, some of this is, as far as Marist has been
Right.
just recent discussions. There has been no resubmission by Marist, so I'm not sure of the timing of their applications or where they are, so this is why we're trying to keep.
That's why I was confused, because I remember hearing one thing and now you're saying something else.
Right.
Okay.
So one is what they proposed, and what I recently said is what they may do.
Gotcha.
So,
Thank you.
yep.
Carol?
Not nearly as extensive as the chair. I'm not sure where the applicant stands with the Army Corps permit. There was a permit issued by the Army Corps from 2012, which has now expired, and had some incorrect values on it. So we've requested a copy of that permit. As town code goes, where the activities found to require such a permit, it can serve as the application and permit for the town. And in any instance where buffer requirements or buffers are required, we can add those conditions. So we've opted to utilize the Army Corps permit as our permit, given that one is being granted. If not, then the applicant has to start the whole process with the town process. As far as buffers have served, they're there to help protect that regulated resource. Now, as far as the area of impact, this is the lower portion of a drainage channel, which is not blue-lined on the town code. The upper portion is much higher quality than the lower portion, which will be impacted. Basically, the lower portion is headwaters of the storm sewer system as it enters into that storm drain right inside the site. So essentially, that lower portion contains very little vegetation, it's highly eroded, and there's some significant amount of deposition. So it's not by any means a quality wetland. So therefore, we, apply the buffers also, look into the buffers again and what purpose do they serve in that aspect. The eastern area is going to be in a preservation easement. That area has some higher quality wetlands as well as some buffers, and the fact that the whole area is being put into a preservation easement can act as the preservation of the buffers. So I don't feel as though we need to be putting any additional conditions so long as they get the Army Corps permit which should be forthcoming, as I've been told.
Thank you, Carol. Josh?
I have a question for the board. It's been expressed in the past that there's a concern the property will one day fall into the hands of a tax-exempt entity, namely Marist, and what impact that might have on the town. I think that question is a threshold question that the board has to address really before we engage any further mental exercise over all of this. The fire district has, of course, expressed their opinion on this and the effect that this development will have on its resources. That's an additional factor. The town has some options. You can require that the applicant agree to a declaration of covenants that will run with the land, a restrictive covenant basically stating that the property will not be used exclusively for student housing, for example, that it will be available to the public at large, and that it will not be exclusive to any particular group, association, or body of individuals that might effectively prevent the property from becoming student housing. The board cannot condition its approval on the property remaining as a taxable, in taxable status. So you can't condition your approval on that per se, but you can require a declaration of covenants that runs with the land. It would be better if the applicant consented to that at one of these meetings from the get-go, so you know what their intention is. I think if you get past that question, then a lot of the work that we need to do from a legal point of view would be very easily accomplished. But to me, before we get to more of the ministerial work that I have to do, the stormwater agreement, the bond agreement, there's some conveyances I think we've talked about in the past. Before we get to any of that, before any expense is incurred by the applicant, you should hear from them on that, whether they're comfortable agreeing to a declaration of covenants.
Okay, that's a point well taken, and I appreciate your articulating that for us.
Question, if I may. I assume that there's some time frame that applies to. Is it life?
And I think, generally speaking, the courts are going to uphold those kind of covenants when they have some expiration. So you could, if they consent to a lifetime restriction, I think it will be upheld. It's legally enforceable. If there's
say that it could not be sold to a non-tax-paying organization.
If they agree to that explicitly, you've accomplished what you wanted to do.
Right. Yes.
Are you prepared to address that?
No, we aren't. We'll carry that back, obviously, to the property owner, the applicant.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
You want to do this now? You want to talk about this, or you want to open a public hearing?
Yeah.
All right. Neil wants to make a comment regarding.
Actually, I'll call your attention to the June 16th memorandum from Sarah Davis, the town zoning administrator. She's in her memorandum, she's pointing out that there are 349 spaces provided, and there are a total of 594 bedrooms. The parking ratio in the PROD legislation is 1.5. But that legislation also says ultimately the parking is whatever the planning board says the parking is. We've had conversations with the applicant. The applicant has actually offered 2 spaces per unit. But when you consider that this is mostly 4-bedroom units, single occupancy 4-bedroom units, our expectation is that most of the occupants will have their own cars. We think that this overall, there are again, we're sort of feeling our way along here. This is sort of a unique project in the sense that it's not a kind of, it's sort of an atypical housing arrangement in terms of the way the apartments are arranged. But we believe that there's something on the order of around 75% of the 594 bedrooms is actually what is required in terms of parking, which effectively means that there's something about 140, 145 spaces short from what they're actually showing. Now, the 349 that Sarah calls out in her memorandum actually includes spaces that are part of the, there's an office and like a little commercial area to the building as you immediately come into the complex. We're really more looking at the parking allocation for the bedrooms. And so, I'm sorry, just the residential portion of it. So when you break those commercial spaces out from the ones for the units, there's actually something like 304 parking spaces.
Correct, 304, 34 additional for the commercial space, commercial community space.
Yeah, so when you figure out, you take, you multiply 594, which is the number of bedrooms, times 75%, that's where we come up with the roughly 140, 145 spaces short. We've conveyed this to the applicant. We think that that's a more realistic number. We've also talked about the possibility of a banked parking arrangement. We've done this before, but whereby the parking spaces are shown, they're actually designed and as part of the final site plan, and then there's an agreement between the town and the applicant, which allows the planning board, when it determines that there is insufficient parking provided and those spaces need to be built, they get built. So again, we've done that before, but before we even get there, the applicant will have to try to figure out how to squeeze those 145 spaces in. So it's pretty tight right now. Again, it's something that we've been talking to the applicant the last couple of weeks about. So.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, just address that for a moment, because just for the board's edification, we've worked through that with staff here and in our own offices, and we've created a plan which satisfies that requirement. So there was a bunch of discussion, obviously, about how to calculate parking. We simply worked with the number that you've provided. You will see, as as Don pointed out, when we submit, probably painfully in 2 or 3 days, at a layout which provides that for you. So we've been successful in that, and we're very pleased to give that to you next to see.
Okay. Thank you. This is a public hearing, so I make a motion, we open the public hearing.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Public hearing is open. We need to get a microphone up for the first person signing up to. We have 3 people who have signed up to speak at this public hearing. Dawn Simone, 24 West Cedar Street, Poughkeepsie.
Thank you. I live at 21 West Cedar Street, and my concern is Sunset Avenue, which when I bought the property 16 years ago, I was told by the town was a private paper road, or excuse me, a town-held paper road, not a private road as we had discussed this evening. So our concern was that our driveway is actually technically off of Sunset Avenue. If this road is now going to be paved and ripped up to be utilized to bring water and sewer opportunity to this complex, obviously that means that I will not be able to access my driveway, which is in the back of my property. Several years ago, we went through the town and we put a driveway in the front to make it easier for me to access, seeing as how I am disabled. But the back driveway, obviously, since we have more than 2 cars in my family of 4, is obviously necessary. So I'd like to know how long the road is going to be inaccessible and what that actually means as far as us not being able to access our own driveway. That seems pretty legitimate. In addition to that, we also had a question, seeing as how it was supposed to be, according to the plans that I reviewed, used as an emergency access. The fire trucks trying to enter into Sunset Avenue, I don't know if anyone's ever actually seen Sunset Avenue, but it's going to be extremely difficult. So there's going to have to be a wide turn that's going to be made there, and it's liable to take out the telephone pole that's there, in addition to the light pole that's there, in addition to the fire hydrant that's there. So that would all maybe be of concern of yours as well. I would also like to know, since we were just told this evening that it is a private road, privately held, that's been sold to Page, we'd like to know who's going to upkeep it, since we've been maintaining it over the last 16 years, and who's actually going to make sure now that it's, you know, completely accessible, because obviously we're going to need access. We have been told that the plans include a sidewalk, so we'd like to know now, are we now required to actually keep that maintained as well as we keep the front property maintained with the sidewalk in front? Because obviously, if you have Marist students walking back and forth, they're going to need access. I just want to point out that, you know, I pay my taxes, and we looked into buying the road initially from the town, not once, but twice, and were told the incorrect information. And I really feel taken advantage of at this point, because this would be a moot point had we been allowed to purchase the property, pay the taxes on it, and the road would be a non-point at this juncture. So I just want that on the record for you all to be able to hear, because as someone who's disabled, I have enough trouble getting around. I don't need you guys to increase that difficulty for me in any way, shape, or form. I'd also like to just, since none of you live in the area, I just want to point out what you're attempting to do by putting in a 166 unit establishment, what that's going to do for the traffic that is now already at a sometimes ridiculous amount when you have the classes that are going on at Marist as well as what's going on at St. Francis, both West Cedar, Fulton, and Fairview. That traffic is sometimes ridiculously unbearable, and all you have to do is sit on my front porch or in my backyard at any given point to know what I'm speaking of and actually experience. You've taken a situation where, yes, there was traffic, but it wasn't intolerable. Now you can't sit on the front porch because the sound is just, it's ridiculous. You might as well sit on Route 9 because that's how bad the traffic is. It's no longer a community, it's becoming a highway. That's ridiculous. That's not what we purchased. And I'd like you to consider that. I'd like you to consider quality of life. When you're talking about adding all of that traffic, you know, would you want that in your front yard? Would you want that in a road that didn't exist for the last 30 years, now all of a sudden introduced into the side of your house? I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very well said, and Eric's taking a lot of notes on. I think someone from the department will probably set up a time and pay you a visit and walk your property to see exactly, you know, all these things that you talked about, okay? So we will do that. If you want to give Eric your number, we'll make sure that happens. And again, you made some very valid points, and I thank you. Second, we have Stu Lake, or Luke, I think it's Lake. 71 Fulton Street.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stu Lake. My wife, Maureen. We live at 71 Fulton Street. Unfortunately,
You've got to hold the microphone closer.
Unfortunately, directly across from the new access into this property, probably 50 feet to the east of it. So it's going to be a significant impact to us going in and out of our driveway. In addition to the recommended change in the road, straightening Fairview out, which will dump directly out in front of our driveway, putting a stop sign up the street, any kind of traffic backing up there whatsoever is going to back up in front of our house, and we will not be in and out of our driveway very easily. The traffic, as well stated a minute ago, it's very heavy on the road, especially when school is in session. So without some kind of traffic control, certainly the stop sign would control some of that. I just think in front of our house is going to be problematic for us at any rate. So I'm extremely concerned about the amount of traffic that is going to be generated with especially the number of parking spots you guys are requesting. It's going to be a lot of traffic going in and out of there. So I think that's something that has to be stared at very, very closely on how that is going to impact our community, because it will be a major impact. The tax statement that you made, I agree 100% on. It was one of our major concerns. We currently pay one of the highest fire taxes in the state in the Fairview district, and having anything put on the rolls, not put on the rolls, is going to be a major impact as well. You spoke about certainly the buffer zones to the Fairview side of it. I'm extremely concerned about a buffer in front of our house. I don't want to stare at this property. I don't really want to hear this property once it's up. So I really would like some kind of buffer on Fulton Street so that it's really not exposed to our house. We'll be looking straight at it if that's not the case. So I really want that taken into consideration as well as you go forward with this. As construction starts, if it gets to that point, certainly noise and the traffic in and out of there with construction vehicles are a concern to us. We want to know what the start and stop times are going to be for this construction going on. I don't want to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning because equipment's over there banging.
No, you won't. There are ordinances that control that.
And they've been clearing that property already, and it's starting fairly early in the morning. So it's already starting a little bit early. So
7:15.
there you go. So I mean, as much as there are ordinances, I just want to make sure that there's a little bit of control on that.
Just consideration for neighbors.
Okay, no, that's fair.
So I don't want to be overly long-winded here, other than the
That's
fact
okay.
that
We're going to keep the public hearing open, so you'll have another opportunity to come back.
we are going to be one of the most affected people in the community, living directly across the street from the access into this property. So we are very, very, very concerned about this project moving forward.
Thank you. Again, Eric, if you can give them the information, we'll open up a dialogue. We'd like to, again, come out to your house and see what's going on. We'll bring the traffic engineer with us, or perhaps he can meet us on the site and we'll go over that. We were there on Tuesday, but it bears having you involved, and we'd like to do that, and along with your other comments.
I'd appreciate that.
Okay, so the staff will work with you. Thank you.
Rodney, can you also convey to Kelly the issue with the current work going on the site and remind them of the ordinances?
I will do that. I was looking for the chairman's attention just to be able to inform the board that right now, what we're doing there is an extensive geotechnical investigation. So we have drillers on site out and about performing their work. That's should be 3, 4, 5 days of duration, depending on, obviously, the site
But
conditions.
they got to work
and
within
have
the
you.
confines of what the start and stop times.
I agree with that. I just want the board to know that that's the work that's happening on site, is a geotechnical investigation, but I will convey that. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 3, George Litko. I assume that's from Fairview Fire District?
That is correct. I'm here on behalf of the Board of Fire Commissioners. They have obvious concerns. You've heard from some of the taxpayers tonight already. There is a significant impact that is likely to result from this project alone. When you look at the available call information, and we shared with, let me back up one step. After the last meeting, we were contacted by Kelly Leibold. She and Darren Page came to the firehouse. They met with the chairman, the chief, and myself. We had an exchange of information. We gave them what statistics we do have available about the calls that the fire department responds to. We have limited information, but we were able to produce information on Pendle Commons, which is roughly half the size, 40%. And we were able to estimate prospective calls based on those statistics, which are imperfect, but that is what the district does have. And that could result in somewhere between a 5 to 8% increase in call volume. And we have submitted 2 letters for the record. One is May 7th, one is June 10th. And the June 10th one outlines in much greater detail the conversation we did have with Mr. Page and Ms. Leibold and the concerns that the board has regarding the impact of this project by itself and the impact when it's considered with other projects that are either before the board now, likely to come before the board in the near future, or under consideration by Marist and Dutchess. We have to provide that response, and we have to provide it when the need exists. That is not simply an average of calls, it's calls when the need arises. And the chief shared with Mr. Page and Ms. Leibold that currently we have approximately 16% of the calls coming in concurrently, which means both of the crews that are available are responding to emergencies, be it fire, be it medical. But both those crews are out, and we face the real possibility we're going to have to put on another crew, and that can be an expense of over $200,000 with all the costs that are incurred. So there's a significant potential coming. You guys know what you have. You guys have heard from, if you're at the town board meeting the night before the last meeting, the 750-pound gorilla in the room is the development of the center, which will obviously take place over a considerable period of time, but the fire district can't just say we're coming and get there overnight when the need exists. It has to budget for that. We have obvious constraints on the budget. We have legislative constraints on the budget. We have to put people on, hire them out for a contract with them. We have to have trained professionals that can provide those services. So we have a significant lag time before we can serve, and we believe that is an important consideration when you look at this project, as well as looking at the other projects. There was discussion with Mr. Page and Mr. Leibold, Mr. Page and Ms. Leibold, about the possibility that there would be a restrictive covenant on the property. My recollection of that conversation was that they were willing to consider it, and in our letter, we expressed the need to have perhaps a more comprehensive covenant than was provided by Pendle Commons. So that's a different creature. It gets its exemption, partial exemption under a different statute, and there really needs to be attention given to this for the obvious reasons. It's been said tonight, it's been said in the letter, I don't really need to repeat that, but we are concerned about the outcome. We're concerned about keeping that on the tax rolls. We will be providing services, and it's critical that there be opportunities to recover some of those costs through the tax system. The fire district made a very important point that we've had a couple of meetings since meeting with Mr. Page and Ms. Leibold. The fire district at that meeting, or the chairman actually, and myself, in discussions, there was concern about the nature of the information we have available, whether it's adequate, whether it reflects the nature of their impacts. We made a commitment, and the board endorsed it, to provide that information as completely and thoroughly as we can. We do not, and the commissioners made a point of this at a special meeting on Tuesday, the board does not want to delay this project. They don't want to stop the project, but they do feel it is absolutely critical and imperative that those cumulative impacts, as well as the impacts of the project itself, be taken into account in the seeker review. There is concern about the safety of the residents of this project. There's concern about the safety of the existing residents of the district. And there's concern about the ability of the professional staff to provide safe services, due to the increasing amount of overtime that they're having to spend and the prospect the district faces of having to make those services available through overtime or other means that is going to just provide wear and tear on the staff and on the vehicles. So there is concern about safety. There is concern about the physical ability to accommodate the resources on the site. The Fairview Firehouse was built, I think, in 1948, 1950. There have been some expansions, but right now it is essentially at capacity. You suggested that you'd be willing to make a visit to the residents, and if you're out that way, I think the fire commissioners would be very pleased if you would stop at the firehouse. We'll arrange a tour so you can see what the resources are and the constraints that provides. It's likely that if we have to provide any additional staff, we're going to have to expand the building somehow. That's a real concern on the part of the Board of Commissioners. They do not want to impose that upon the existing residents. The taxes are obviously extraordinary, and the additional burden that could be placed as a result of dormitories, as a result of the institutions that are not contributing to the tax base are a very significant concern. We are concerned about the road modifications we heard tonight. We would like an opportunity to review it with the chief and the other staff that have to drive that, make sure that those are consistent with the district's ability to get to the places it needs to get. I think what I would like to do, since you are keeping the hearing open, and lawyers are supposed to be brief, but we have a different sense of that. What I'd like to do is just submit a follow-up letter for the record.
Well, it's all on the records, and it's all being recorded.
There may be some points I didn't cover, and I'd like to just make sure you have them to consider.
You're obviously very good at writing letters, so we'll welcome another one.
I'll try to keep this one short.
John, could I ask Mr. Lithgow a question?
Well, actually, we don't usually, at the public hearings, don't usually do that. Okay, we'll have another opportunity, I think. I think what I'd like to do is set up a meeting with Mr. Wilson, Mr. Mackey, and we'll come visit the firehouse. We have some other issues, some issues to talk about, everything you spoke about, and maybe some additional. So I think we would like to do that, and we will do that.
Yeah, I think the meeting too would also, I would expect, cover not simply this project, but we do have some other projects that we're anticipating coming in, including the dormitory project at Marist, which probably will be coming in the next few months. So, I mean, it's all sort of in the same sphere of concern. So we'll set up a follow-up meeting with Chairman Gephardt and whoever else may be available from the district, and we'll come up and see you folks.
Board would appreciate it.
Okay, great.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak at this public hearing? Only 3 people signed up. We're going to adjourn the public hearing until a date specific, which would be what, Eric? I'm sorry, Rod, when do you think you will be back? August?
We are resubmitting next week in advance of the meeting. I don't have a calendar in front of me. The next available date.
So should we adjourn until July?
We're into July.
July
We're in
17th
July.
is the next planning board meeting.
Okay, well,
There is none in August.
typically we don't have a meeting in August, that's correct. So we'll adjourn until July 17th.
Right.
Okay? I move we adjourn the public hearing until July 17th, 2014.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
All right, thank you, and for everybody's input.
Okay, now we're going to board and get board comments. Let's start with Peter this time.
You're not off the hook yet. Good try, though.
Just while it's on my mind, with regard to the Fairview Fire District, I'd like, hopefully at some point they'll be able to share with us if they have taken a look at a projected assessed value of this project, which would be considerable.
Yes.
Apply your current tax rate against that assessed value. And just give us some sense, is that would be a negative or a positive to to your cash, to your tax revenues?
You don't have to answer that now. Just take the comment.
If I can.
No, the public hearing's over, so we're not going to do that. But take his comment And when we meet, we can discuss, his concern.
already working in that direction.
Okay.
Good, because it would be an important number to know.
And Peter, I'd like you to attend that meeting if at all possible.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
I just have a few comments. One, obviously, we're going to be interested in seeing the geotechnical work. You're at the top of the hill, steep slopes, drainage is going to be a concern. So basically, we're probably going to want to see what that looks like. A lot of concerns have been expressed before by members of this board, by the county planning, by our zoning administrator about the population. It was asked, the question was asked by our consultant about the number of residents. Are these units going to be furnished? Are they going to be furnished?
My information from what I've heard from our client talking is they are to be furnished, yes.
Okay, so they're going to be furnished units. When asked about the potential population, which is probably way overboard, of around 1,100 residents, you responded by saying that the applicant will agree to the same enforcement mechanisms used throughout the balance of town and in the Fairview residential area. I'd just like to know what enforcement mechanisms are those? You don't have to answer that now because you probably didn't write the response.
That's correct, Mr. Finelli. Thank you for letting me out of that, yes.
But I would like, because I'm curious.
Absolutely.
What are the enforcement mechanisms that are being referred to?
You want me to answer that one?
No.
Well, our planner isn't here this evening, so.
I don't know what they're referring to either. We don't have.
I'd just like to find out what they're referring to.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't, we don't do head counts in apartments or in single-family homes. We just.
And a lot of this really, I'm thinking about the PROD designation here, and whether this project is appropriate or qualifies for that designation. That's why I'm asking you these questions. Another question that came up is with regard to our consultant wanted an expanded narrative as to why this does qualify for the PROD designation. And part of the response was the proposed project is intended to provide alternative housing opportunities in the town of Poughkeepsie. Now, I would just like, I'm not asking you to do this, but I'd really like to know exactly, what is meant by alternative housing opportunities and how this project qualifies in that regard.
Very good, Peter.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Carl.
Good evening. I think the plan has got some improvements since the last time we saw it coming in. I think the new entrance versus sharing with the Avello paving is an improvement as well, and I think there's better sight distance there that covers that as far as people turning in and out of it, as well as the correction to the Fairview extension there for tying that in. You said you had a parking solution. I was going to suggest, you could, if you can't fit additional parking spaces, you consider lowering the unit count as well, but however you decide to go about that. So I think parking is going to be an issue. And in general, I'd like since this is going to house a lot of students as well as others in the neighborhood, it's important to have all that good pedestrian bike connectivity to the surrounding area. So the sidewalk going down Fulton as well as out to West Cedar is important to maintain there. And I see that's a good part of the plan. And I think you had bike racks on the plan, at least the previous one. The only other thing I'd mention, I think we talked about the steep slopes at one point as maybe some kind of terracing going on, some retaining walls and terracing to avoid such a steep slope in the back there. But let's see how that works out through the plans. That's all I have.
Can I have one quick follow-up?
Sure.
Because Carl brought up a good point here, and that is we're increasing the number of parking spaces. When we increase the number of parking spaces, we're increasing the number of impervious surface. So that's another thing I think that we probably should be mindful of in the process.
I see they do have some porous pavement on their plans, which is a good
We
thing.
do, we do. And again, I'm not in a position to comment, because I'm sure you want to go through the rest of your board members' thoughts. Just on the steep slopes, because I suspect that will come up several times, the slopes in the rear are shown for, at this level of design, which is really to work through the potential impacts with a seeker hat on, as 2-to-1, which are standard acceptable slopes. So what we have, the conversation has been, what do you do with those slopes, has a lot to do with what the geology is. So once we get through the geotechnical report and we see what's in the hillside, we'll create options. Sometimes terracing is a good idea, sometimes it isn't, and there's the factor of aesthetics and engineering. So it all needs to come together, and we expect that will, and we've conveyed to the board that will all come together to everybody's satisfaction as we get into the real site design process.
Yeah, that's good to point out that the seeker is the first thing, and then the final site details. The last thing I wanted to mention is the access road off of West Cedar. I guess that, some concerns of the neighbors, but I think was that required from a traffic flow point of view to ease as well as the fire truck?
It's not necessarily absolutely required. It's desirable to disseminate the overall traffic and reduce traffic along Fulton Street to the extent practicable.
What about, from a fire emergency access?
That is something that should be considered. It's the turning radii for that intersection that demonstrate that that's acceptable.
I think it's a big project for only having one entrance from a fire standpoint.
There's got to be an auxiliary entrance, so.
Right.
It's either it's going to work or it's not,
Yep.
Thanks, Carl.
Number of questions. First of all, this obviously is a student housing project. And when I see 4-bedroom and 2-bedroom furnished apartment, to me, that just rings the bell of student housing. And that's fine. Privately owned, so on and so forth. But it certainly sets the tone as to what the makeup of the population will be. Now, having been through Fairview and East Cedar and West Cedar and so on and so forth, if I drive through there on a Sunday morning, I can see basically what looks like a 2-family house with at least 20 cars in the parking lots. Yeah, that's weekend visitation, so on and so forth. But it certainly begs the question about parking. And it certainly begs the question, even on a 4-room basis, I got guests in, 3, 4, so on and so forth. So to me, the parking issue is a big issue. And to me, the overall size of the site, maybe it ought to be a 3-story rather than a 4-story, which might bring it down to a more reasonable size. The sidewalk thing. First of all, if I read it correctly, I see asphalt sidewalk. If I read the plan correctly, I see an asphalt flush sidewalk, correct?
In which direction? Towards West Cedar?
Right here on Fulton.
That's on, yeah.
I believe it was asked.
Yeah. Well, can we make it concrete? Because that's never going to last through a winter.
Yeah, I honestly, I thought that was our intention, just to do concrete.
Secondly,
the existing sidewalk on Fulton in the Beck Place area is concrete, so it would be desirable to match that. Yes.
Right.
Well, fix the print then. I'm talking about on your print.
I see that.
here.
Yep. I see the note. I happen to have a smaller version of that here, so.
Hard to read, but.
No,
got my-
it does say that,
got my
but
new
all of our
glasses.
conversations have been concrete sidewalk.
The other thing is the sidewalk basically ends at your entranceway. What's the possibility of continuing the sidewalk? And quite honestly, what I'd like to see is a sidewalk that goes all the way up to the children's home crosswalk. Because there are a lot of pedestrians that do use that. Matter of fact, we were out there the other day and there's a man walking right down from there. And if there is a crossway right there at the children's home. which connects to another sidewalk. Seems to me it would be an ideal time and place to do that. The other thing I'd like to see as well is delineation of the northern roads coming into Fairview. There are 2 points. One is right across from the intersection almost, I think near where this gentleman lives, which I know is a tough corner. It's on a grade, and I know there's been some accidents there. And yeah.
Where's he talking?
And right down below there, at kind of the bottom of the grade, I think it's Fairview Extension and what's the other street?
Sunset.
Sunset, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, if you could delineate those and also on the Cedar side as well. I think it just helps us to understand what the layouts are
Okay.
a little better.
We have had those conversations, but I understand what you're saying. We'll show them better. I assume we'll also.
Especially on, where you're dealing with the Fulton realignment plan,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. It would just help for us board guys to see that. There was some discussion out there the other day about the possibility of a stoplight. And I quite honestly don't know whether it's a good idea or not with the slope there versus stop signs and so on and so forth. You got a stoplight up there on Fulton Street, up, I don't know, 3 or 4 blocks from it, which for the life of me, I don't know why that one's there, but it is. But any rate, if somebody could take a look at that, I'd appreciate that. I certainly agree that traffic is going to be an issue. Based on my grandkids coming and going, so the classes, be it at Dutchess, be it at Marist, they got classes at night, they got classes in the morning, they're back and forth all the time. That's another aspect that I think ought to be taken into consideration as well. And I got to believe that if this housing is available for students, even if they live around the corner, they're going to want to go live there rather than with mom and dad. Mom and dad can afford it and so on and so forth. I've seen it. So I speak from experience on that as well. So at any rate, that's kind of where I am for tonight. I think that covers my, yeah, for now, that's good.
We'll hit it again in a month.
Right.
Yeah, for the next meeting, what I'd like to see is, and we talked about, Colin, he brought steep of the property, and since you're doing the contour cleanup now and that, I'd just like to see how the building is going to be set up, because you got pretty much steep, on the property, just a recommendation next meeting, just to get an idea where you are and.
And we can definitely do that,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And are you been working every Monday through Friday on the property now?
Are we working on the property every Monday through Friday?
No, Monday through Friday.
The geotechnical drilling has been underway for several days.
Okay.
So I think just from talking to our site inspector, we should be done in a couple of days.
Okay. That's it.
Yeah.
If I may go back.
Yes.
I did not take up the land contour thing. I certainly would like to see us come along a lot further along before we start ripping up the land. I know that's always an issue, and the timing and the time of the year and so on and so forth, but at any rate, I'd like to see us on firmer ground, plan-wise and otherwise, before we start tearing it up.
Hate to see it get all torn up and then the project doesn't go anywhere for whatever reason.
Seems to be a lot of questions out there. Needs to be a lot of questions out there that need to be addressed. Thank you.
My comment, obviously I'm tuned with the rest of them. I'm still concerned about who's going to ride herd and keep control of all these college students in these furnished dorm rooms. Colleges have a protocol set up to do that within their own facilities. How's that going to work here? Need to know that. And we need to write that into the plan. Okay, very important. Okay. Any other comments?
Is it my understanding then that a banked parking agreement is also on the to-do list?
Well, I guess that's to be decided based on what the revised plan would be, but that could be an option. That is an option, I should say.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say, honestly, yes, just at this point.
Okay.
It seems to make, it's logical to discuss it for all the environmental reasons, but it has to pencil out with the staff's planning opinion about the allocation of parking per building and so on. So we have to settle with a plan that meets everybody's happiness, and then look and see if bank parking can be approached. We've set up the plan that you'll get to be able to have sections of it banked, but I'm not sure if the board ultimately will agree with that approach.
Yeah, I mean, they're working, we haven't seen the plan, we've sort of discussed it conceptually.
Okay.
I mean, we're also cognizant, as Peter has pointed out, that, you know, the more parking we're adding, the more impervious surface. And
Right.
we obviously want to keep that to a minimum.
Right.
But it is a potential.
Just one quick note. I know in my comments, I calculated out what the maximum impervious is, and based on the value that was on the plan, they're below that. So I don't know if there's a possibility to fit more parking, possibly, and still come under the impervious requirement, so.
Thank you.
We're conscious of those requirements. Yeah.
In that case, I move the planning board determine that the application is incomplete for secret review and pending further elaboration on the proposed development and its potential effects.
Second.
It's moved and seconded that the planning board has determined that the application is incomplete at this point for secret review, pending further elaboration on the proposed development and its potential effects. I call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. I move that the planning board defer action on this PROD designation, site plan and land contour and aquatic resource permit applications, and direct the applicant to respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, including but not limited to the following, that's 1 through 13.
Second.
And I would just add to that, and the comments made this evening by the public. Okay, second?
Second.
Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We'll see you in July.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. We will continue this on July 17th, and you'll be hearing from us, from the town, and we'll be there. Application number 2, public hearing, U-Haul of Poughkeepsie, site plan hearing and planning board to declare its intent to be the lead agency for renovations to an existing building for use as an indoor self-storage facility and related site improvements, 2175, 2185 South Road, Zone BH, Highway Business, 6.98 acres, Americo Real Estate Company owner. It's an unlisted action. Carol, you want these? You want the sign-up sheets? Janice Anderson has joined us. She's a planning board attorney.
Hello.
Hello. We may have more attorneys in the back, who knows? At any rate, please identify yourself and the project.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Minuta. I'm a registered architect with Minuta Architecture. I'm here tonight to represent the project with U-Haul. Representative from U-Haul to my left is the owner's representative, and we'll be providing any technical data that you may need on the project.
Okay, and your name is?
Ted Hardy.
Okay, Hardy?
Yes, Hardy, Hardy.
Thank you.
What we have is an existing site. Americo, who is the owner, purchased the site. What was former a Lazy Boy mercantile use is now being converted to a storage use for U-Haul. There's no change to the footprint. The only change to the site that we do have is a relocation of 2 handicap stalls with the striped area to the lower portion of the building on the site. You'll see that to the south. On that same side, we'll be placing a new sliding glass door where there's currently window fenestration, and that'll have an access point which is for service. To the rear of the building, which you'll see to the west, we'll also be providing a new opening for overhead. Within the confines of the building, U-Haul has what is known as a U-Box concept. They drop the box off at your home or wherever that may be. You load it up, they come pick it up and bring it back to the facility. So to accommodate that, we'll be providing an overhead door and a new egress door to that side. Those in sum are the changes to the project.
Okay. Thank you. Who's got this one?
Actually, I got it. Well, actually, Alex and I. Actually, Alex Dietrich is our summer intern. He actually did a fair amount of the write-up on the memorandum as well as the site review. So I'm just going to summarize. Well, you've heard the project summary. This, I guess, going back some months, there had been some work within the old Lazy Boy. There was a stop work order that was issued. Actually, that's the time I met Mr. Hardy a few months ago. So at this particular point, the work had been stopped. We had conversations about the need to bring in an application for site plan approval, and that brings us to tonight. The underlying use is allowed within the Highway Business District. It's also subject to a special use permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So the action before the board tonight is to circulate for lead agency on this, and we'll be talking with the applicant about the application that needs to go over to the zoning board as well. Did you receive a copy of the staff memorandum?
I don't believe that we
Dated
did.
June? Okay, you can actually have this one.
Thank you.
As soon as we're done reading from it. So we're going to circulate for lead agency. They'll need to go get their approvals from the Zoning Board of Appeals as well. But I just wanted to sort of set the stage, if you will. If you notice on the site plan, the property itself encompasses not only the former Lazy Boy, but the Bonefish Grill site as well. It's actually all one property, sort of a shared parking arrangement. The Lazy Boy had been vacant for a number of years. And my understanding is that basically you're kind of using the building without a whole lot of changes to the exterior, with the exception of the overhead doors and whatever you need to for the pods that are going to be going into the back. Within the building, and maybe I'll ask the applicant to elaborate, it's sort of a two-tier. It's not a second story per se, but basically you've got ground floor storage units and storage units above those that are accessible through some kind of a catwalk arrangement, for want of a better word. But it's not an actual second story that's being installed. But it's basically two levels of storage units, climate controlled and all of that. So what I'd like to do now is to turn it over to Alex just to kind of run through the plan review comments. There were some things that were noted about the existing site conditions. Those are detailed in our memorandum, and the project plans would be updated accordingly. So turn it over to Alex.
Good evening. So we went to the site and we did a little field trip and observed some things that should be addressed. Firstly, there's a light fixture on the southernmost curb of the property that needs to be replaced. In conjunction with that, I think the rest of the lights should be tested and if needed, repaired or replaced. Secondly, landscaping, it looks in pretty good shape. However, there are some issues on the same curb on the south of the property. Staff recommends that the landscape plan from December 22nd, 2004 bird in hand approved site plan be reestablished. And we have that on record if need be. As for the parking lot, the paint needs to be repainted. It's faded in most places. In the back of the property near the garbage enclosure, stop sign needs to be replaced. That has been damaged and is laying on the ground. And as for the garbage enclosure, we recommend that it should be a masonry structure. Keep it more, or to ensure that it's more durable for in case heavy equipment damages such as garbage trucks and such. There's trash and debris in the back of the property on the west side. What else?
That's pretty much mostly it.
Yeah, there's.
This is important to note as well.
Dutchess County Planning Department noted that the project is a matter of local concern. Yeah. All right, thank you.
All right, so.
Thank you.
Summary.
Thank you. Don, anything?
We just want to make sure that the stormwater maintenance agreement notes carry over on the new site plan. We did have some questions about utilities, restrooms, all that stuff, whether it remains, and also just wanted clarification on whether any of the parking lot needed to be restriped because the doors are put in different locations and all of that. So those are the major questions.
Thank you. All right, this is a public hearing. I hear a motion.
So moved.
Second. Okay. Call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Anyone in the audience wish to comment on this application? I know no one signed up, but I'm asking just in case someone came in late. Okay. I
Make a
think
motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
it's been moved and second. We close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Around the board, Carl.
Yeah, I'll just say I noted the same things that the department noted as I was at the site visit as well. The garbage enclosure, the new town code is a masonry structure for those enclosures. Know if he mentioned some of the asphalt some of the curbing is asphalt and that's broken up into pieces there in one spot, maybe replaced with concrete curbing or otherwise fix it. And some of the landscaping we've discussed is a little overgrown, but in good, decent shape. I don't know if you plan to restripe the parking at all. It's a little bit faded, the lines, but they're still visible. You mentioned the two-story inside. Not sure I see it. I assume that means there's an elevator in here somewhere?
No.
Or how do we just throw stuff up to the?
No.
If you're trucking in some stuff to store.
From a functional standpoint, the majority of the storage is on the ground floor. For accessibility use, there are units placed on the ground floor at the accessible level for that use. And there are simply steps that go to the upper portion for storage. So
people
it
have
complies.
they have to carry their things up the steps?
That is correct.
All right.
I won't be going there.
I imagine the ground floor will be more desirable. And from the architecture's point of view, I think you've already stated it, but you're not planning to change the building look and feel that much.
No, the aesthetics of the building, the vocabulary of the building will remain the same. In fact, we're using the same window fenestration. We're actually opening the window fenestration on the one side and providing just doors in the same exact boundaries.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you, Carl. Ed?
I'm curious about the second floor thing. These pods, what do you call them?
U-pod.
The U-boxes?
U-boxes. Can they be stored in one of these upper room things above the ground floor stuff?
There's 2 ports to the plan. If you'll note to the southwest of the plan, there's an L shape.
Right.
Yep. Thank you.
I see them there, though. What I'm wondering about is in the storage area itself, would you be putting those pods into a storage room, or would you only be using that L-shaped area for the pods?
I can handle this question. The U-Box area is an employee access only area.
Okay.
They are self-storage units that we, as a company, will bring to your facility or your home.
Right.
We can store them in our facility for you. We can also ship them anywhere around the world. But it is strictly an employee only area. It's essentially a large garage where we will store the boxes. They do not go to the second floor.
What was going through my mind, friends are moving and they have a pod. And they're being told, you got to get it off the property, and their house isn't going to be ready for another month and a half. Can you store that pod at your facility with all of their contents in it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You would store it in that L-shaped area?
That is correct.
Okay, that's what I was going for. The upstairs thing, though, it really baffles me. You would expect the customer to drag everything that he's got to an upper level to store it?
Essentially, a lot of our locations throughout the nation are like this. There is a number of staircases, there's a number of stairs on the staircase provided. Ranges anywhere from 6 to 10. And yes, they, believe it or not, when people want to clean out their garage, they will do anything to do it so their wife doesn't make them sell it.
Are you available?
Most people would
I
rather
wish I
pay
had
to
thought
store
of
it than put it on their front lawn the twice a year that's permitted.
Okay. Truck rentals. I take it the site is not doing truck rentals.
There is a future endeavor possible. As you know, we have a location up the road, 2560 South Road. It's not on the table at this location. This location is self-storage. They are two different parts of a business plan. When you look at our company, you see rental trucks. We do have two separate divisions. One is self-storage, one is rental trucks. 2560 South Road is doing just fine.
I'd like to see that kind of written in the deed or the contracts, whatever
We're
they
gonna
are.
make sure that's a map.
Yeah, I mean, I can see one or two small trucks for,
Not
you
even
know.
that, I don't think the special use
Not
permit
even
will
that?
allow that, no. Not unless there's a truck going back and forth each day.
Well, that's what I meant. If it
You don't
was,
have enough space, too.
Yeah. I'm thinking about some of the other storage units, they have a truck available for a day or something like that. But consider it, whatever you think is best in that regard. I guess that's it.
Should have called storage pod. Well, first of all, I mean, it's great that business goes in that location. It's been empty for the last 4 or 5 years, maybe more. But just only question a couple questions I have. Can you tell me the business hours?
Yes, Monday through Saturday, we are open 7 a.m. until 7 p.m.
Okay.
And on Sundays, we are open from 7 a.m. until 5 p.m.
So my question to you is, when you move these pods, do you make noise with the trucks, beeping noise of backing up the trucks? So I'm not sure, you know, how do you move them? And the reason I'm saying this is because you got neighbors right behind you. So I'm just getting an idea, because Sunday morning, let's say I need a pod at 7:30, and, you know, obviously you're gonna get there at 6 o'clock and get the pod. I just get to know how you're gonna move this pods and if there's any noise involved.
No, not a problem, not a problem. We utilize, in other regions of the country, we utilize a U-Box shipping truck. We do not use that in our region. It's not conducive to the type of roads that we service. So we utilize trailer systems. It's a trailer smaller than a 15-foot boat trailer. It connects to our trucks, connects to, when I say trucks, connects to our pickup trucks, our smallest 10-foot all the way up to our 26-foot truck. No backup alarm, no loud noises. We use our own on-site forklift to place the box on top. Following DOT regulations, we secure it. There's minimal noise involved, other than putting a wood box on a trailer. Other than that, when they get shipped into us, in other words, when we want to ship your product, or your personal belongings across the country, we use an air ride tractor trailer system. As you know, we have 2 entrances to this facility. The tractor trailer would pull in, we'd load the box in, bar the unit, and it would leave the other exit. There's virtually going to be a minimal disturbance at best.
The other question I have, as you know, some rental units, sometimes some of the customers, they'll bring their own trash, you know, broken chair, TV. Are you going to have something like that in nature on the property? You know, sometimes someone brings a pod back and they forgot something, they didn't want it. Are you going to clean the pods inside?
Yes.
And where are you going to put that stuff? You have a container or a trash container?
Yes, if they're willing to surrender those goods, if they no longer want to, if their wife says don't bring them home, and they don't want them anymore, or
Big business.
whatever they want to do with their goods, we would simply put them in our dumpster.
All right. I just want to make sure. I don't want to see like broken chairs or things that wives don't want it in the back there, and it looks like a garbage.
No, I completely agree, and we don't want that aesthetic look at all.
Thank you. Thanks for the.
Speaking of that, what's the length of time before you can take legal action to clean out a storage unit or a pod if nobody comes and claims it?
After 90 days, 3 registered letter attempts, we then, over the next 60 days, send notice auctions, post the notification. Unfortunately, it's a 5-month process.
That's what I was thinking, it's 5 to 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Unless you need it.
Just going along his
That's
line.
the auction.
And usually the 159th day, miraculously, a payment's made.
Yeah.
The customer, just to set the record straight, the customer does not move the pod.
That is correct. It is a
It's all handled by
employee
you.
Correct. It is an
Delivered
employee
and picked
only.
up, they load it, you pick it up, you store it or ship it or whatever you do with it.
That is correct.
Okay, so typically the pod would be, go someplace else to be emptied. My concern, along with what Joe said, is people have a storage locker and they leave junk behind, but that's fine, you could throw it away or whatever. If people typically have a lot of junk anyway, and when I happen to use one of these someplace, and they kept their dumpster locked because people would fill it.
Correct.
Do you plan on doing that? Because they got to take their trash with them. You're not providing trash services.
No, sir. We actually provide that at a fee. We do lock our dumpsters every single night. We are in negotiations with Royal to provide locking dumpsters. Just as we would lock up the building, we will be locking up our dumpster units.
So there's penalties for leaving people leaving stuff around, but you're not going to make it easy for them to just dump their stuff.
Oh, correct. No.
Okay, good.
I just want to add, echo Joe's comment. It's good to see a reuse of a building that's been empty for a while, so.
Thank you.
If I may add to that as well, too, next door with Bonefish, they have a huge dumpster area. It looks like they've torched off a lock of some sort. You're aware of it?
Yes, I've had my hands full being a landlord now. Most of our maintenance has been actually on that side of the property.
All right. So it is something that you're going to try to get taken care of because it seems to be a rather trashy area.
Yes, it is. I've had multiple communications with, they have a long list of managers. They're owned by Outback Steakhouse, so I have to call 3 different states, 9 different people, and talk to 4 different assistants to finally get to the person who I can speak to.
Kind of
So
like talking to Arizona, right?
yeah, a little bit. So we will be performing the upgrades instead of going through the channels and asking them to do it.
Okay.
See, that's the idea.
It's a lot easier.
They win.
Yeah, it's thanks for letting us leave a message. We're going to fix it.
Yeah, right. As far as the building is concerned, you're not changing the color, you're not changing the architecture, you're going to paint it the same colors, or at least fix up the front where the old Lazy Boy sign is a little bit dirty behind it. You can put up your own sign.
Correct.
I assume. And you are not, and this is not a question, it's you are not going to paint it the same.
Oh my God, no! You don't even have to ask the question.
I forgot to mention.
As long as my boss doesn't get a copy of this video. No, the only thing we were doing is enhancing or repainting the existing colors that the building currently has.
Thank you.
So it will not look faded. I have specifically and strategically lost that color blue that you're referring to.
No, I'm talking about the zebra stripes.
Yeah. What a pretty design that was.
You are on television.
We've gotten rid of that. That is not going on this building.
Good.
That was my next question. Please do not.
I think we were.
Well, that's not going to be a problem.
We must have been asleep that night, I don't know. Okay, thank you. Anything else? Anybody else? We closed the public hearing, okay, so I move that the planning board declare its intent to be the lead agency to coordinate the environmental review of the proposed project as a non-listed action and authorize the planning department staff June 6, 2014 notification of the involved agency of the planning board's intent by circulating a notice of said intent, a copy of the EIF, and a copy of the application to the identified involved agencies.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call the question. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
When is the opening of time frame?
You asking him or us?
We've had numerous goals.
I'm asking it for you too.
We've had numerous goals. I believe the new goal is September 1st.
Not bad.
Which year?
this year.
Well, if you put everything you just said in your special use permit application, that'll help the process, because the zoning board's going to ask all the questions they just asked.
Good. Okay.
Show them the video.
I move the planning board deferred action on the site plan application pending establishment of a lead agency and direct the applicant to respond to the following inclusive of comments received from town departments, agencies, and agencies included, but not limited to those below, and including tonight's comments from the board. And it's, those below are 1 through 9 and comments from the board. Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, we're here to help.
Good to see a guy really enjoying his new job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your
I
time.
like a take charge guy. That's good. Very good. Okay. Now, Marist College. Parking improvement Beck Place, site plan hearing to expand parking along the easterly side of Beck Place from 217 spaces to 285, and alteration of Beck Place traffic pattern. Demolition of Marist Warehouse Building, 3399 North Road, zoned IN institutional, 2.77 acres, unlisted action, Marist College owner. I move that the planning board, planning department recommends the planning board adjourn the public hearing to July 17th, 2014.
Second.
So moved and seconded, we adjourn the public hearing to July 17th, 2014. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Marist College, A4 Marist College, parking improvements, St. Anne's. Site plan hearing and waterfront consistency review to expand parking area and configure access road on Marist property at the northerly end of the campus, 3399 North Road, Zone IN, institutional and WD-1 waterfront overlay, districts 26.5 acres, type 1 action, Marist College owner. Planning department recommends the planning board adjourn the public hearing to July 17th, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we adjourn the public hearing to July 17th, 2014. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Plan review, Springside Neighborhood Development, secret lead agency reaffirmation for a revised action consisting of a proposed rezoning by the town board, site plan, subdivision, and lot line revision by the planning board, and special use permit by the ZBA for a proposed mixed-use development, 45, 48, 52, 54, and 57 Woodside Avenue, 25A Wagner Road, and lands to be acquired from New York State DOT and the town. Zoned ATC Arlington Town Center, and an R20 resident, single-family, 20,000 square feet, 5.27 acres, unlisted action, Built Parcel 4 LLC and Built Parcel 3 LLC owners. You have anything you want to say?
Just that you have a revised resolution dated June 16th. We just tweaked the language to correspond to the lead agency, what we circulated a couple days ago. Also, last night, Wednesday night, the town board did receive the proposed zoning amendment, consented to the planning board as lead agency, requested that the planning board recirculate for lead agency based on the new action, and they referred it to the planning board for a recommendation. So tonight, staff's just recommending that you perform that recirculation.
Okay. So in that case, I move the planning board to reaffirm its role as a secret lead agency to coordinate the environmental review of the proposed modified projects as an unlisted action and authorize the planning department staff's June 16, 2014, circulation of a notice of said reaffirmation and modified action to the involved agencies together with a copy of the Part 1 long EAF and a copy of the application.
Second.
And second.
However, are these gentlemen here to say anything?
I don't know.
They were going to offer you a presentation on what they're doing in change.
Well, we can do this and then we'll get a presentation. I call the question. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. So we're going to get an update?
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect.
So my name is Michael Rodriguez. I'm from Tinkelman Architecture. I'm here today with Eric Nyler. Mr. Tinkelman was hoping to be here tonight. There were some unforeseen circumstances. He couldn't make it. But he did ask us to give the board a little update on what's happened. It's been some time since we were last here. We wanted to let the board know that things have been going well there on the property. We've been hard at work. The residential portion that was approved as part of our initial submittal, those apartments rented quickly, a couple of them within the first week. Also, we've been fortunate to have some new tenants come in. So in the space below our office building, we now have a new tenant. It's a business called Poughkeepsie, which is probably best described as a child activity center. They have a couple of party rooms and a little art studio, a little play place for the kids, and a real nice young couple opening a new business, and they seem to be successful. Also, we just recently signed a lease for the building adjacent to our parking lot. There's an environmental engineering company that's going to be moving in. They just signed the lease. We're getting ready to go on the construction on that building.
Which one is that? You want to point it? Where is it?
This building here. So they'll be moving in. We're going to do the interior fit out, and then we're also a small addition is going in on the front of that building for their use. So that's some of the things that have been taking place, but probably the most significant change took place when this parcel here on the corner of Springside and Sites Terrace became available. So we're in contract now to purchase that piece, and that really opened up a whole new world of possibilities. So tonight, just to talk about some of the changes that triggered. On the site plan that we're presenting, the south end remains exactly the same. Nothing has changed here. But on the north, with this new parcel, we've taken the opportunity to go from before we were proposing 4 new buildings on the north side. Now we've condensed it. So there are 2 buildings only. They're slightly larger than the footprint we had before. But what that allowed us to do was to get rid of the road that we had coming in from Springside previously. And now we're creating a new lot with access from Sites Terrace. Eliminating the road gave us the opportunity to provide more green space and more common areas also between the buildings. I guess some of our goal here was to create more pedestrian connections between or within the space, and then also create a sense of place. So we have a more detailed plan here, and I'm going to turn it over to Eric to talk about some additional details of the project.
I like this project. I really like it. Thanks, Mike. That was a good intro. I think I would just sort of follow along with what Mike's saying, is that this project has always been about placemaking and enhancing the neighborhood that we are already members of as a business. And the opportunity that became available when the Manfredo piece became up for sale, getting rid of the road, as Mike has said, cuts down the blacktop, enables us to make greater pedestrian connectivity between the 2 buildings and consequently down to Springside. Across the street, there's an axial connection here between this sort of expanded, used to be called the Gatehouse building because it was by the drive. Now we're just calling it the Center House. So there'll be commercial spaces on the first level with an arcade, sort of sheltered arcade, so you could sit outside. Maybe there's small tables if it's a coffee place, or even just a place to sit. And this major new interesting pedestrian space that is opened up by the road being taken away, so that this building really starts to speak to and connect with the existing house that's over there. So you get these nice commercial spaces that are flanking this interesting public area. We're preserving this really large, nice tree here. And then there'll be pedestrian pathways that take you up to the hilltop building, we're calling it. And there'll be new outdoor areas for the residents that live in that unit. So maybe there'll be a bocce court or even some kind of different types of gardens. There are a lot of opportunities, and the project is going to continue to evolve in that way to make it more detailed and more of an asset. Not really, so we'll be ready at the next meeting to talk more about the architecture, but I can assure you that it will blend in or fit in with the neighborhood, but it will be something new. It's sort of a mix of traditional and contemporary architecture. And some of the color schemes and materials will speak to the things we've posited over on the other side of the road with the renovations to 52 and 52A and the main building itself. Anything else? I think we
Maybe just a brief comment on the actions we have before the board. So we have the site plan approval action. Also, we're looking for a lot line revision. So currently the lot line between the new parcel and the existing parcel is here. We'd be realigning that line to divide between the buildings, and then also a subdivision to take the remainder of the lot and divide it into two. We understand that the board was kind enough to reaffirm its role as lead agency for the secret process, and then also will be appearing before the town board for the rezone of this parcel. We had the rest of the property rezoned already, and it would just be adding that parcel from R20 to the ATC district.
Just the more I hear about this and the more I see as you develop things and buy some of these other parcels, it's just going to create a whole nother, I believe, a destination for people over time to go to in addition to what's on Raymond Avenue and other things. I think it's really good for Poughkeepsie, really good for the town. It's great.
Yeah, that's definitely the intent, and I think taking away that road, I mean, I may have said it too many times already, but it's pretty exciting because it really emphasizes the pedestrian and community walkable neighborhood idea that I think is the way to go with new urban ideas, and we're excited about being able to make it this way.
Good, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's good. It's good. Okay. Plan review number 2. Benoit Theodore? Subdivision and site plan. Subdivision and site plan review. Planning board to declare lead agency intent for a 2-lot subdivision and site plan. 1 lot to contain an existing 2-family residence and garage, and a 2nd lot to contain a new 2-family residence. 3 Springside Avenue zoned ATC, Arlington Town Center, 0.29 acres. Unlisted action, Benoit Theodore, owner. Hope I said that right.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Christian Paggi with Lawrence J. Paggi, PEPC. On behalf of the applicant, as you just said, Mr. Ben Theodore. The property is located at 3 Springside Ave, nearby the property that we were just discussing, or you were just discussing. It is in the ATC district, as you said, and the applicant ultimately desires to get an approval, subdivision and site plan approval for this property. Currently, the property is approximately 12,700 square feet. It houses an existing double-family, 2-family home, 2-story, and the proposed would be to subdivide the property into 2 lots of approximately 6,300 square feet, with the intent of building an additional 2-family home on the created Lot 2. I think you are all pretty familiar with the area. We just had a presentation on it. But just north of the property is the R20 district, and there is also a business district to the northeast. When we first submitted, in my cover letter to the board, I requested some clarification of the zoning code. Well, when we were going through it, it seemed that the proposed conformed to the existing zoning. But we requested some clarification as to the density requirements and minimum lot size. And we had since received comments back and received that clarification from the board and from the consultants. So we do appreciate that. So given those responses, it appears that we're looking at several area variances ahead of us. But I will leave that to the board and its consultants to elaborate on, so I do not misspeak. And let's see. Yes, I believe that was it as far as an overview of the proposed. But I am open to any questions or comment at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. You want to take it?
Yeah, actually,
Al.
Alex had done the work up on this.
Al can take it.
What's that?
Al can take it.
You can. What I want to do is to to describe the area variance. It's a little convoluted, so, and I'm going to turn it over to Alex to talk more about the actual comments in the site plan and the subdivision itself. This is really a matter of first impression. Christian had contacted me some months ago seeking clarification, and it was kind of one of those, in first blush, it does appear that there is a conflict in the code, but the idea, however, is that there is it's not a conflict, there's just sort of a qualification in terms of the minimum square footage per lot. So within the ATC district, it's a 5,000 square foot minimum, except when you're talking about a residential subdivision, in which case it becomes 7,260 square feet. Presently, there's a two-family home on the lot, which under the residential density is actually undersized, but it's a legal two-family. It's on a non-conforming lot. It's about 12,000 and change.
700 and change, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So what they're seeking to do is to subdivide the property roughly in half, 6,300, 6,800 square feet lot. But they're going to be well under the density required for a two-family home on both of the lots by some order of magnitude. And that's actually where we end up, is that they need some area variances and they need some relief. They would also need relief even if they were doing single-family homes, because the lots that are being created are smaller than the 7,260 square feet that they are otherwise required to have as density for residential use. So that's kind of it in a nutshell in terms of what they have yet to do. So our recommendation going forward is that the board establish lead agency. We'll have to work our way through seeker before the zoning board can act, but they'll need to make an application to the zoning board. So I'd like to turn it over to Alex just to talk a little bit about the site plan aspects of this.
Okay, so a few issues with the site. The actual structure itself should be placed closer towards, what's the name of that road?
Yeah, Springside.
Springside.
Towards Springside, to be uniform with the next door neighbor house and give us a uniform look with the surrounding neighborhood. The parking lot could then be placed in the rear of the property and be placed off of the dead end right there. And
Vanderwater, is that what that is?
yeah, in the water. And just to comply with the codes, you're gonna need 3 parking spaces. It's 1.5 parking per family. Vanderwater. Maybe a vegetation screen could be used to just create a little privacy for that second lot. Those are the major problems with the site.
Thank you.
Residential, it's 7. So if they want to do
All right, Matt's going to answer that. Okay, that explains it.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Alex. Don?
Our concerns, although minimal, that some of the existing condition part of the plan looked a little shaky. So we asked that some things be added that we thought should be there, like the sidewalk, curb, retaining walls. And we were concerned with the way the parking was coming in and the way the lot would lay out as well, because it gets a little steeper in the back. So we were looking for an elevation just to know how that would fit in. And that was pretty much it.
Thank you, Don. Comments from the board, Ed?
Yeah, I'm just trying to, your print, if I just understood it correctly, the required ATC minimum lot size is 7,260, is that correct now?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so that's per lot,
Per dwelling.
per dwelling.
Right, so it's times 2 for a two-family dwelling.
Ah,
So they need a little over 14,000 square feet for a two-family.
so that's the zoning problem.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll revise the plan to show on that table the correct number. That was part of the clarification that we were we were trying to get.
Yeah, I'm just catching up.
Yeah, no, so am I. So am I.
We're on the same boat.
Okay.
Thank you.
I understand that. Thank you very much.
Joe, anything tonight?
No comment.
Thank you.
Peter?
Couple of quick questions. One, there's, on the east side of the proposed two-family, it's only a 10-foot side yard setback. Is that okay in that district? Okay. The house, is it going to be, it's going to have a full basement?
At this point, we haven't gotten to that point, but I would imagine we would do, the proposed would have a full
The
foundation.
reason I
yeah.
ask you that question, in this area, you know, the utilities are crazy.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know where the sewer and water lines are running
Yeah.
under there, so I'm saying if you're going to dig, be careful.
Yeah.
Because you don't know really what you're going to find
Yeah.
underneath there.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
The entire structure here is 1,176 square feet. You're going to have two dwelling units there of roughly 580 square feet there, 600 square feet.
The area that is shown on the plan is simply a mirror image of the footprint of the existing building on that lot.
This is proposed two-story, two-family, proposed.
Yep.
This is 1,176 square feet. Is that your best estimate of the size of the, wouldn't be the footprint, it would be half of that, it would be about 550 square feet would be the footprint.
I think he's really saying that might apply to each floor.
Oh, yeah.
Is it, that, I need.
Oh, it'd be 1,176 square feet would be the footprint of the
Correct.
building. Okay.
I'll clarify that in the plan.
All right.
Thank you for that.
Two.
Versus the,
Yeah.
versus the buildings.
Otherwise, it's kind of a small house.
It'd be very,
For two families.
That's why I asked it.
That's what it is.
thank you.
Thank you.
Carl?
Yeah, I agree that it'd be nice to have it lined up in the front to be consistent. I'm not sure, I think the department was suggesting parking off of Vanderwater to get in behind versus, I'm not sure, I don't know how, I mean, the topography there is Vanderwater's taller and going up the hill, and right now I see Vanderwater parked completely with cars.
Yeah.
On both sides, so it's maybe a little tough. I don't know if you could work a way to get the, access still in off of Springside to come down around behind the house or to the side of the house. Might be easier, I don't know. And then we just gotta wait and see what the zoning board does.
Exactly. And yeah, regarding the comments, we received them, we reviewed them, and they all seem extremely reasonable, and we're more than happy to work with the board and make sure that this, as we move forward, please everybody and make sure that this is the right situation for the town. So we're more than happy to work through these comments and satisfy all of them. And like you said, I think really moving forward, we just got to figure out if this is going to, how the zoning board reacts to this, basically. So that, I think that is the next step, is making sure we can get this variance to see if this is plausible.
It's a rather large one, so.
Great, thank you. Okay, I move the planning board declare its intent to be lead agency to coordinate the environmental review of the proposed project as a non-listed action and authorize planning department staff's June 4th, 2014 notification of the involved agencies of the board's intent by circulating a notice of said intent, a copy of the EAF, and a copy of the application to the involved agencies.
Second.
Moved and seconded, call the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much for your time.
Hang on, not done. I move the planning board defer action on the site plan application pending establishment of a lead agency and direct the applicant to respond to the following inclusive of comments received from the town departments and agencies, including but not limited to those below. And we have 6 comments in addition, 9 with 8 comments, and the comments of the board this evening.
Second.
We moved in second. I call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Now you can go.
Now, thank you for your time. Have a great night.
Did you get a copy of that, Chris?
What was that?
Did you get a copy of that?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care. Have a great night.
Okay. I'm not going to suspend the rules this evening because there's no one else in the audience. He's next application.
Too much like him, right?
Okay, other business. Z3 Consultants, Inc., discussion regarding change of use, 516 Haight Avenue, zoned ATC, Arlington Town Center, .11 acres. Z3 Consultants owner, Gary Beck is here representing Gary Beck.
May I approach the?
Yes.
I'm glad some of you left because I only have 7 copies, so you have to share.
Well, let's see, 1, 2. Okay, Don, you need one of these?
Carol. Yeah.
All right.
Carol.
Well, here, take these. I'll look on with Ed. We'll share one. Okay, there we go. I've been there. You got the ferment sign.
Can I have a bigger copy of this?
You want an autograph?
Just by way of background, actually Gary and I had met, I don't know, a month or so ago. Correct. Project. He had actually informed me a couple of months ago that he had purchased the property. There had been a fire there some time ago.
Last April.
Last April, I guess, yeah. Following up the conversation, we actually had lunch a week or so ago and suggested that it would be time to, invite Gary in and advise the board of some of his plans for the building. We talked about some of the options that he has in terms of adding a second story and that sort of thing. But that actually is what brings him here tonight, so I'm just going to turn it over to Gary.
Okay. So I purchased this property in April of this year with the intent to move my fire extinguisher business in there and do some training. When I got inside, I realized that it wasn't in the shape that I thought it was when I first bought it. So I decided to gut the interior. And see, I don't sleep at night. I sit around and I think of more things to do. So now I thought about maybe I'll put a second floor on there. So that's the other reason why I want to get here and sooner than later, because I'm just going to keep changing my mind. So what I have there now, and then it's possibly going to need a roof. So if I'm going to change the roof, maybe I'll put a second floor on there. What I have there on the first floor is just shy of 800 square feet. I'd like to take the whole first floor for now, see how the fire extinguisher business goes. I'd like to take and build a second floor, and as you can see in page 1, step it back from the front being Haight Avenue and on the east side 5 feet on both sides to comply with zoning. Also, I didn't want it to look similar to what you see on the first page on the right. As you're coming down Haight Avenue, you'll just see a wall 20, 22 feet tall, just straight. I didn't want that. It's on the corner. On the opposite corner, there's some roof lines. There's a little definition. That's what I want. This is a heavily traveled area, and I'm going to benefit from them 2 corners. So I certainly want to make this look as best as I can. You go to the second floor, the second page, you can see the second floor, and I also would like to put a garage off the back. Go to the third, and I'm getting ahead of myself here. On the side, you'll see the 2 windows on the first floor. One of those is actually going to be a door. And the reason for that door is, from what I understand, when the chiropractor was in there on the first floor, the state came down and plowed Haight Avenue and plowed him in. There was only one exit, which is only one exit required by code, but he got plowed in. So in the event they do that to me, I want to make sure that I can get out. There's a telephone pole there, as you can see in the front picture. There's some guy wires that are right in the way now. Verizon and Central Hudson have met with me at the site and agreed to move the guy wires back 5 feet to accommodate this side door. And if you go to page 3, you'll see the garage doors. Well, I have obviously going to need some storage. I have a van right now, a company van that I'd like to keep inside there. To begin with, I thought outside would be okay, but every day I go there or I send someone there, we're cleaning up the garbage or the graffiti, and it's going to be one of those things I'm going to have to deal with. So I'd rather deal with it inside than have to deal with it on the vehicles. There's existing pavement in the back there's 5 spots right now that are marked I can fix the blacktop, shift up those 5 spots, and gain 2 more in the back. So there'll be 7 parking spots, which I believe at this point here, it's a little early, I understand that, will accommodate first and second floor. Upstairs, I'm looking for 1 apartment, small, 500 plus or minus square foot, for hopefully someone at Vassar that wants to be like an artist work live loft type thing. And maybe even if they drove, I have one side of the garage that might be able to benefit them as well.
Thank you.
I'm looking for some suggestions, comments, concerns, before I get too far ahead of myself here.
Keep Chinese cooking out.
What's that?
Keep Chinese cooking out.
No Chinese restaurants. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. At this point here, I don't have a desire to do any cooking, especially myself, because then I'm going to be doing it at home. Fire extinguishers and this here is going to be enough.
I mean, Mr. Chair, Mr. Beck really cleaned the property in the back. I'm not sure if anybody would have purchased that property after the fire and cleaned it pretty well and cleaned it with graffitis, and I think it'll be a good asset on that road with an extension.
We were up there and you could see that he's taken some care to take down the bad, the fire damage stuff and you know what, it would enhance that corner. I don't see a downside to this.
Plus, he can't sleep on nights.
That's true.
He needs to buy some more property in the town to keep him up.
Well, let's do one at a time.
Oh, one at a time, okay. I wish the telephone pole could go away, but that's not.
So do I.
So.
Yeah, so the conversation I'd had with Gary, really, within the ATC district, the setbacks are generous. He does have a corner lot, so he's got the 5-foot setbacks, and the way that we have been handling, I guess this would be a non-conforming. I think the front and sides of the building are probably the property line.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. So even going up a story, he would need a variance in order to maintain that wall. But as he and I had talked about, we already have a large continuous wall immediately to the west, and that just extends, 100 so feet down.
Yes.
So to provide some interest, if he were to step it back that 5 feet, he could, create, sort of an interesting roof line and avoid the variance. So that's what you see in the drawings. Okay. In the ATC district, we encourage 2-story and multi-story with residential, particularly above commercial, which this is. And whether it's an office or whether it's a living space, it's entirely up to him. But certainly the place was an eyesore, and he's done a lot to clean it up. So, but there are a lot of options that he has.
I think, obviously, I think you're getting a positive vibe here that,
Yes.
you should move forward with this and, get whatever you need.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
Gary, can you give me some idea of what the depth is of this roof? It's the existing building.
What's the setback, you mean?
No, the depth of this.
I think that's the 5 feet.
That's
that we're
5
talking
feet.
about. So it comes up,
Okay.
step back 5 feet.
So it's a step back 5 feet.
Second story would be added on.
So at 5 foot, you go up.
Right.
Gotcha. That's what
It gives
I'm
us some
trying to-
definition instead of being flat like the rest of the building. So.
And I'm thinking, and as you can see here, I didn't do it on everybody's, I didn't have enough time. The first, that 5 feet back will be a metal roof. And then on the second floor, it's a 712 pitch roof. I want to give it, again, I want it to look, grand, but not overdo it here with columns and stuff like that. But so the second floor, that roof will be architectural shingles. Again, if you look across the street at Millman's and some of the houses that are there, I don't know whether they're 1, 2, or 3 family, but they have some different roof lines, which really totally changes it as you're going down Haight Avenue from west side down to the east side. It makes a big difference.
Now, that metal roof, would that be the corrugated look kind of?
Yeah, you'll see the lines. They're about 2-foot panels, and you'll see the lines every 2 feet.
Yeah, there's a corrugated one, it looks like corrugated.
Standing seam
cardboard.
roof?
No, standing seam. Yeah, I know what you're
Okay,
yes.
right, that's what I was wondering.
You're dating yourself now.
Very popular in the Adirondacks still.
Yes.
Great snow relief.
That's on the outhouses, isn't it?
Both.
Oh, I see. All right. Okay.
Greg Rayner.
Okay.
I can hear it all night long.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Good to improve.
Have a good night.
You too, thanks for coming in.
I was in favor of it too, Gary.
You are?
Looks good.
Did you want the corrugated plastic roof?
I had one of those at one time.
Fiberglass? All right, Friendly Honda, comprehensive site plan, time extension for a previously approved site plan for comprehensive building and site plan improvements throughout an existing motor vehicle sales and service facility to be expanded from 5 to 6 parcels. 1121 to 1159 Dutchess Turnpike, Zone BH Highway Business, 5.64 acres. Secret negative deck on file, Dutchess Facilities Management, Inc. The applicant requests a 2-year time extension of the construction completion date required within 2 years of the planning board site plan approval of July 19th, 2012, which expires July 19th, 2014. Well, good math. The planning department recommends the planning board grant a 2-year time extension for site plan construction completion from July 19th, 2014 forward to July 19th, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded, call the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 5-0. Okay, next one, D3, Stratford Farms Townhouses. This ought to be fun. Time extension of a final major subdivision approval and site plan approval for 26 individual townhouse lots, a common area lot, and site improvements on a 6.83 acre parent lot within a previously approved 185 lot subdivision, Stratford Drive, Zone R-4A, residence, single family, 4 acre, 6.83 acres, negative declaration on file, ABD Stratford LLC owner. Anybody want to talk on this, or are we just going to defer? I know there's some, we had some
Well,
discussion the other
we're
day.
deferring action on this till July anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I move we defer action on the time extension till July 17th. 17th, 2014.
Second.
Moved and seconded, call the question, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Okay, and last but not least. Mountain View Estates subdivision, time extension for proposed 8-lot subdivision, Bedell Road, zoned R-4A, residence, single family, 4 acres, 64.04 acres, secret negative declaration on file, Mountain View Realty, Inc. owner. I move that the planning board grant a 90-day time extension of final major subdivision approval from July 11th, 2014 forward to October 15th, 2014. So moved and seconded, call the question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 5-0. Okay, is there any other business that comes to come before the board? We're good. Got a motion to adjourn?
I move we terminate the meeting.
Second.
So moved and seconded, we terminate the meeting, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries 5-0. Meeting is terminated, we're done, thank you for coming, Kelly Leibel.
I just had to come.
What'd you do? You did another deer?
Just wanted to see her.
Did you run all the way?
I ran the entire way.
Did you run over a deer?
No.
Oh, not this time.